Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Ash Paulson and a special guest, Dan, from Nintendo World Report, to discuss his hands-on time with a full version of Yoshi's Woolly World. So let's get started. Alright Dan, so you have the full copy of the game because it comes out in Europe pretty soon. Lucky jerk. So you've probably put a lot of time into it now, right?
Yeah, I played through the first 4 worlds pretty much, yeah.
Alright, so that seems, I'm guessing that's pretty far in the game. So, what are your overall impressions so far of the game?
Well, what I touched upon last time is that I felt that there was a nice difficulty curve to it, and that's exactly still the same. The game seems to grow world by world even more faster and more frequent than Yoshi's New Island ever did. Which is amazing to me. This actually feels like a proper Yoshi platformer.
Yeah.
There was some stuff severely lacking in Yoshi New Island. While I liked it, there was not really much inspirational fluff to it. Well, this has pretty much as much creativity, like in 2 levels in the entirety from Yoshi New Island combined.
Wow,
so
yeah.
it pushes it so far, and we touched upon it a little bit in the last time, but I now at this point played, what would it be, like 32 levels, so I have a way better idea of how this game is played now. Nice.
I mean, I read your preview too, Dan, and I watched the videos, and it's just looking incredibly inspired and really unique, and I was excited about it last year when I played it at E3, but seeing your videos now, I mean, it's just really it looks like it has really benefited from having that extra time in the oven, because obviously it's had a pretty long development cycle, but it seems to have been worth it. It looks really sharp.
Yeah, it doesn't seem much lengthier than any other Yoshi platform, but the things they do are so radically different, because you have the whole yarn concept at its core already. That changes up the way that game is played, because it was used to be all about those eggs, like throwing those eggs to destroy enemies, but bringing that yarn concept to fruition, it gives it more of a touch.
Right.
So it sounds like one of the new things you've been able to play around with that we didn't even know about before are the Wii Remote controls, where if you're playing with the Wii Remote, it actually functions differently than if you're playing with the gamepad, right?
That's correct, yeah. So on the Wii U gamepad, the Pro Controller and the Classic Controller Pro, or the regular one, but who plays with that one really? You use the regular control scheme of pressing the R button, and then the cursor moves about, and then you have to stop it, and then you throw the egg.
Yeah, like in the old games.
Yeah, in the old games. But with the Wii Remote, you can now tilt the cursor yourself, which makes a major difference. It absolutely...
I bet. I mean, it seems like it would.
It absolutely changes the game a lot. Like, in all the videos that I've shot, and all 10 of them, I used those remote controls. And you can see just that I try to move it about myself. And it makes for a much smoother game, because when you make a mistake, it's absolutely your fault. Once you are in more hectic situations, you can easily just throw a yarn ball at the very last second to save yourself. Which is much nicer as you go through the game, because the game becomes kind of challenging, and I didn't really like that challenge with the regular controls as much.
That's a really good implementation. I'm surprised they didn't offer an option for the gamepad though, because you could tilt the gamepad too. It might not be as comfortable, but I'm surprised they didn't.
Yeah,
give you some idea.
Because I mean, Splatoon is all about that kind of motion control aiming with the gamepad. So
that's true.
Huh. But yeah, I can see myself playing like that.
Well, the thing is, the gamepad only mirrors what's on the television. Like, there's you pretty much see on both screens the exact same. So there's no reason why that they couldn't have done that. But it's right. A weird one for sure.
Are there any unique gamepad things in the game, or is it simply just off TV play?
There are no unique functions to the gamepad.
Okay.
Didn't think so.
So what's the coolest thing you've seen about the game so far?
I'm just taken away by how many collectibles there are. And I want to correct myself in saying that the last time I got something very slightly wrong regards to the Miiverse stamps. Because I assumed that when you collect all 20 of them in a stage, that would unlock a Miiverse stamp. But no. You actually have to... Well, you need all 20 to complete the level fully. But the major difference there is when you hit certain thresholds across the game, that will unlock like 4 or 5 Miiverse stamps at once. So they do this. They do it very, very differently than I personally expected it, which is nice because it means that you still unlock rewards even for trying to collect them. You're not fully tied to just completing the level and then you get your reward, which is kind of the case with the smiley flowers and wonder rolls, which you talked about before.
So the collectibles aren't as annoying as they were in the original Yoshi's Island, right? Where like you had to look for like 8 red coins even though they looked identical, and like finish the level was like 30 stars.
Yeah, the thing is, so you have the health bar that counts to your score, the Miiverse stamps,
Okay.
and then the wonder rolls and the smiley flowers. So that is a lot to take in, but it's more fun searching around for them because it serves an actual challenge there. You can turn that challenge off by choosing one of the badges you get with collecting the beads, which you talked about before. But I saw a whole more bunch of them basically. Like again, you can use Poochie the dog who can play alongside you. You can pull items with magnetic force, and you can see the hidden items, which removes that challenge somewhat. You still have to go out of your way to get them, but you get a better idea of how them are. So it's also handy for the player who is not really skilled enough to find them on their own, I would say. But it's less annoying than I would say in previous Yoshi platformer.
Interesting. I mean, it sounds like they're trying to make it more accessible, but still kind of keep that challenge factor associated with the Yoshi's Island series intact.
Yeah, because you don't have to use the badges; they're an option. So most of the time I didn't use them, except for I used the one that would make my yarn balls bigger all the time. Because certainly in specific levels, it's handy to have a bigger reticule to hit towards enemies, which is a nice thing to have. But the rest I didn't use as much because I usually wanted to search for the items a bit on my own, which is a bit more fun.
Now, how many badges can you equip at a time?
Just one. Yeah, the interesting thing about it though is you are asked before you start the stage if you want to use them, but you can also just activate them while you're playing the game.
Oh, so you like even if you're in a level, you can just turn one on.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Like what, mid-level? Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So if you're stuck with something, you can easily implement that right from the get-go.
Okay, well that's awesome. Is there a downside to that?
Not really. It's sometimes, well, considering they ask you every single time before you start, they encourage you to use them. But I do consider it some sort of a side thing, really.
Right, but does the game does it if you beat a level like with a badge, is there like a does it mention that as like, hey, this guy used the badge to beat this level, or
no?
Is there like no indicator at
No,
all?
they don't. They are not that cruel.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
That's nice.
And how do you get badges? You buy them, right?
No, the badges you pay for them before you get the level. The actual badges you get as you progress through the game.
And you get those with the more beads you accumulate, right? With the badges.
No, I'm not sure how the badges specifically unlock. That's the only thing I'm not really sure of as the metric is for that. But they randomly unlock as you go through the game. Actually using them, that costs you beads.
Oh, interesting. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else you can use the beads for, or is it just badges?
Just the badges, unfortunately.
Okay. What kind of world themes have you seen so far? Because like the first one is like your typical, like, you know, Plains world, right? Like with Mario mountains in the background and stuff. Or Yoshi mountains, I guess.
It's a valley, grassy sort of feel, yeah. Then the second one is a desert, the third one was sort of a playground, and the final one was a sort of a deep jungle. Which may not sound encouraging if you hear that from a distance. The thing is, like, the levels don't always follow that theme, and they are way smarter than you might think. Like, there is the grassy levels in the first world, but one of the first levels you encounter is called Bounce About Woods, which is the one we talked about before, where all the trees are pretty much bounce pads. But yeah, those bounce pads are pretty much like the main factor of that level, and that's what it makes those levels shine so much, because every level has this concept that really pulls it through towards the end. Sometimes they combine concepts you encounter later on to kind of trick you into doing some different things, but mostly it sticks to the one theme alone, which I really like. And this continues throughout all 4 worlds that I've played. Like, pretty later on, there's a world, like this spooky world level, where you have to go behind the curtains to make platforms appear. The thing is, if you go behind the curtains, the enemies that you encounter are invincible, which means you cannot touch them and they will hurt you instantly. So it becomes kind of a trade-off where you go behind the curtain to make the platforms appear and progress further through the level, or just wait a little bit until the enemies go away, because they could hurt you pretty badly.
That sounds pretty cool. I had a question, but of course... Oh, okay, so here's a question I have. Something I didn't actually like about Kirby and the Rainbow Curse was the fact that a lot of levels seemed to kind of mess with the core formula a lot, and that there weren't a lot of just straightforward, just regular levels where you use Kirby and bounce them around to get through the stage. Would you say that Yoshi's Woolly World kind of sticks to its core formula most of the time and messes with that, once in a while, or is every stage kind of doing something different? Would you, like very often, or do you feel like there's kind of like a strong core through the game?
Well, there are a lot of levels where it follows the straight Yoshi's formula, but what I think it does so well is it introduces stuff that you might have not seen before. Like, again, with the bounce pads is a good one, the cortex is a good one, but there are also levels that really use more the fabric aesthetic a lot. Like, there was one where you have to hang a gigantic fabric walls and time your jumps on time and jump from platform to platform. And the interesting thing there is that you can't attack enemies, so you have to swallow them up and then throw them at other objects to continue.
Oh, okay.
Which makes it a bit more tricky.
That sounds super exciting. In general, I think something Andre and I both noticed about this game was that whereas Kirby's Epic Yarn kind of felt like a basic platformer with a yarn aesthetic, Yoshi's Woolly World really feels like it kind of takes that yarn aesthetic and makes it part of the world. Like, you're really playing in a world that's made of yarn. Like, it really kind of marries that with the gameplay in meaningful ways.
Yeah, I mean, all of the typical Yoshi enemies are there. Like, it still sort of feels like a Yoshi game, but it mixes together with all this different stuff that makes it something fresh. I mean, the transformations are another fun part that I had a lot of fun touring around with. Every single game they're different, but they still feel Yoshi-like. There was the motorcycle Yoshi, which I got to play like fully around with, which is tons of fun. I did a video of that if people want to see that, but it is amazing. And then there's also one where Yoshi becomes a mermaid and you press a button to do a special spin attack. So there's this whole bunch of ridiculous stuff there. There's just all tons of fun.
It sounds like you're having a really good time with this game. Like, it sounds like this is the Yoshi game we've been waiting for quite some time, actually.
For way too long, actually.
You mentioned too, I think before this discussion, you said you've tried a little bit more of multiplayer. Is that like a really good addition to the game? Like, is it fun to play through with a second player, or I don't know, does it make it too easy at that point? Like, how's that felt to you so far?
Honestly, when I was playing with other people, I usually just toyed around with them a lot. Like, I would swallow them up and throw to higher planes, or just throw them into the pits to make them angry all the time. So we just screwed with each other a lot. But we did cooperate at some points where, like in the curtain level, there are higher platforms that you can only reach by throwing a yarn ball to a higher plane there. But considering we didn't have any yarn balls, I just swallowed them up and threw them there so I could grab the collectible that we needed.
So Dan, I think there's one more thing you've been able to play around with a lot more since the preview event, and that's the bosses, right? Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so the bosses, they follow the regular like free hit structure that you kind of expect from Nintendo's enemies.
Yeah, it's a platforming game.
It's a platforming game from Nintendo. So who would have thought that you would hit 3 times the enemies to defeat them? That's really freaking incredible. Right. I know. Yeah, the first 1-4 boss is this gigantic mole which goes behind a gigantic fabric curtain, and he will pop out, and he will run towards you. You have to hop on him, and then do a ground pound, and then the first phase is over. And then you do that 2 more times, and then you defeat them. Which seems straightforward, but like the boss later on follow a similar structure, but they have more varied attacks. So that makes them at least a bit more interesting. So I didn't necessarily think they were the greatest part of the game. That did do the bill, I think.
Okay, so maybe it sounds like, as opposed to the rest of the game, which is really inspired, maybe the boss battles are somewhat phoned in comparison.
Yeah, I would say that the bosses follow a bit too standard form, and even like up towards the point that I played. But it doesn't mean that they're not fun. I mean, the enemy designs are absolutely hilarious.
Which one's the best one you've seen so far?
Well, this will go probably in a bit too spoiler territory, but I will say a gigantic piranha plant. I will say that.
Well, do you have any final thoughts at all on the game, Dan? Anything else you want to bring up, or any overall impressions you wanted to share before we wrap it up here?
The thing is, I always thought that, from the first moment I saw it, that there was something charming about the game, but I didn't really know how this game would turn out, and if this would actually be the Yoshi game that would be finally the one that would break the mold from the last few that weren't that good.
Right.
But that entire presentation makes it instantly click already, because that entire aesthetic is super well done. You see like the curtains in the background, you see clouds hanging from the ceiling, you see little touches that really make that world tick, and that is so darn special, because not every single Wii U game achieved that. Like, pretty much early on you saw a lot of Wii U games that were fun, but not really chose too much style. And now you see the Wii U kind of coming on its own with like Splatoon this year, and with this, and hopefully with other titles coming later in the year. But I just have a blast with this one. And I didn't even, and for a second I didn't even talk about the music. That's really bad of me. But
dare you.
Yeah, I don't think that the music it plays second best either, because while I don't feel it is necessarily big time Yoshi music, it is very charming music. It comes a bit closer to what like Epic Yarn tried to do with its music, but still having some elements of Kirby there. But yeah,
or a Yoshi, you mean, in this case?
Or Yoshi in this case, absolutely. But there's just so much fun stuff in this game, and I feel that I still have a few ways to go to I see everything. But honestly, I just can't wait to jump back in and just see what the game has more on offer.
Oh, that's awesome. Like, it really sounds like they really hit it on the head here. Like, combining the yarn visuals with the Yoshi gameplay and making something cohesive out of that.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta say, after watching your videos and reading your preview, I was already hyped, but I'm really hyped about it now. And touching on the music for a second, I loved everything I heard in every video that you recorded, so I'm particularly excited about the soundtrack.
The good thing is that you can listen to the soundtrack also outside of the levels in a special area, so
nice.
I
love that.
You don't have to specifically unlock them like you did in Kirby's Epic Yarn. Once you hear it, it will be available to you.
Oh, that's
great.
awesome.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, one thing, what's not to love about a place called Craft Island in a small island in a place called Handmade Ocean? I mean, come on, man.
I love that. That's that typical Nintendo charm that you just see. I love it.
Alright, well I think that about wraps up for us here, so thanks guys for watching. If you liked our video, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, which you can find links to in the description below. It's a good way to keep updated on everything we post. And of course, if you want to see more about Yoshi, make sure to check out the new preview Dan posted over at Nintendo World Report. And Dan, do you want to tell everyone else where else they can find you at?
Sure, you can find links to all of the websites I work for, and my YouTube channel, and my Twitter to Nintendaan.com. which is nintendaan.com, and you will find all the links there that you actually would need.
Sounds good. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain.com for more on Yoshi, hopefully at some point. I mean, once we get the European version in, who knows when the US is getting the copy of the game.
Right.
And other things gaming too. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.